You actually need to have a plan when you're about to give somebody constructive feedback. It's not on a whim and you're like, oh, I just walked by their office. You know what? I should talk to them about that situation. You're going to, if you're unprepared to get, you haven't thought about it, you haven't thought what you're going to say, it's going to come into be a very defensive and difficult conversation. So you actually have to have a plan before you talk. So here's the plan. Number one, you ask for permission. Can you guys talk right now? So that might be, hey, can we have do you have time at 2 o'clock to meet with me to talk about the customer complaint that we received yesterday? Yes, no, whatever, but you're getting their permission. In their mind, subconsciously, they have now given you power, or they have power to say yes or no. And if they say no, they're not ready to talk about it. It's going to be a waste of time. No, I'm too busy right now. Well, let's talk about it today. When could we talk about it? I would like to talk about it within the next 24 hours or within the next week. Talking about it sooner than later helps. If you find out, okay, so let me give you an example. What happens if you found out about an incident that occurred? So one coworker told another coworker to F off, right? And you just found about it 6 months after the fact, 6 months ago. Should you talk to that direct report? It's been 6 months. Hasn't happened again. Most of us will say, no, it's been 6 months, hasn't happened again. You just found out about it, okay? You have 24 hours or a week to now address it, okay? Hey, and what you say is, you know what? I've just been informed about this. It hasn't happened again. I'm glad to hear it. However, that is absolutely unacceptable behavior. And if I find out that this happens again, I am going to write you up for it. So you don't let people off the hook just because you found out about it 6 months or a year from that. It's difficult to write them up. And I'm getting into HR here, but like after a year, that write-up is useless anyways. The court says it's been a year past that. It's not going to hold up in court, but that's another talk. Explain what happened and why it's important. Okay. So again, and you're talking about not the opinion, but the actual facts of what happened and why it's important that you talk about it. That's sort of simple. Next, you want to feel a little bit of their pain and empathy, and you know what, I understand why you would have reacted this way. I empathize that it was a difficult decision or a difficult choice. You didn't have the resources. You were behind schedule. You missed this. You try to put them at ease that you sort of understand their situation. You might not agree with it. You might think it's wrong, but you're at least pointing out that you understand their point of view. Okay? That's number 3. Number 4, you only focus on what has been observed, examples, and facts. No opinions, no inferences, no diagnostics, not what you think happened or your interpretation of what happened, but actual facts. You're rude to a person is not helpful. You throw papers at an employee when you ask them to do something. That's observation, fact, example. Okay? So again, this is, and you're absolutely right, this is the hardest thing, but back to rule, or the first, if you can't come up with an example, it's very difficult to give constructive feedback because that person is going to be defensive, and their first thing is going to be what? Give me an example. And if you can't, your arguments are picking on me, you're harassing me, you're mean to me, you're pointing me out, you're being unfair, you're being judgmental, right? That's why it's so critically important to have observations, facts, and examples. When you pick on actual individual examples, there will always be reasons for it, okay? So the next step, what you do is then you focus on the pattern, okay? So what you do is you give the examples, and there's always going to be excuses. I'll use lateness because it's very easy to, okay? So Jimmy, you've been late 5 times this week. Well, yeah, the first, I had a flat tire, my car didn't work, my baby threw up on me, I had to drive my wife to work, and I ran out of gas. Absolutely. Are all 5 reasons valid? Yes. What's the common pattern? you're late. Okay? So you've now given the examples. You can now go sort of into the generalization of late, rude, performance issues, and you're saying, okay, I understand that each of these has a sort of individual, unique situation, excuse, result. But now we're going to go beyond that, and I want to focus on the pattern. And the pattern is this. Does that sort of answer your question? And here's the problem. As soon as you start having an aggressive conversation, you shut it down. You have to, because it's going to be meaningless. And you say, look, obviously we're both getting worked up about this. And later down on the tip, it says, sleep on it. Never, ever have a conversation when you are annoyed and something just happened. Well, I want to talk about it right now. Right now, what you did to me in that meeting was absolutely unacceptable, and I want to talk about it right now. I'm so sorry you feel this way. I didn't mean to offend. Tell you what, let's talk about it tomorrow when we're both calmed down. Okay? Believe it or not, when you're sleeping, your brain is thinking and processing things. How many of you had a problem, a difficult situation, and in the morning you had a solution? It didn't seem that bad. It wasn't that embarrassing. It wasn't that end of the world. That was your brain having the ability to process it, put it into memory, into synapses, and go, hey, it's not that bad. Okay? Never write an angry email, and never write it right immediately after the incident or that sort. You can write the email and then delete it or send it to yourself, but never write an angry email. Then you talk about the impact and the consequences of what that behavior is doing. It's hurting your career, it's hurting your progression, it's hurting your relationships, whatever it may be. You're not getting trust from your peers, you're not going to get additional duties and tasks. And I get this all the time. I get poor performers going, I want additional tasks. And I tell them, you can't do your tasks right now. How am I supposed to trust you that when I give you additional tasks? Well, that's beyond me. That's so monotonous. I can't, I'm so much meant for better things. Great. Prove to me that you can do the easy stuff, and I'll give you hard stuff, right? It's that dog leash. Walk the dog for 3 weeks, tell me. And I get this all the time that give me a raise and work harder. Tell you what, you work harder, and I'll give you a raise. Right? Because you know what happens every time you give somebody a raise? Their performance increases for about 3 weeks. And then what happens? Goes back down to, because they're going back to their old habits. Right? Take the time to get their side of the story. Their full story. And if they bring in people and bring in additional evidence, advice, you don't have to complete that conversation there. I don't know where this fallacy says that we're going to have this meeting now and we're going to hash out everything and we're going to close everything. So if they're bringing up additional examples and unethical people will lie and say, well, so-and-so saw me do this, or so-and-so will back me up, that this doesn't really happen, hoping that you won't check. Say, okay, let me check on that. And go and investigate. So-and-so said that you saw this. When people challenge and bring forth new information, be prepared to change your opinion, or be prepared to defer making a decision until you are able to get the additional facts. You're going to write somebody up. They brought in new information. There's no reason to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to write you up right now. I'm going to check what you just said, get your side of the story, make sure I got all my facts straight, and then we'll reconvene tomorrow. But what we do is, no, here you go, and you're done, and that person feels that they haven't been heard. At least you're giving the ability for that person to be heard. Suggest a plan for next time. But even better, get their input of what they think they should have done. Okay? Don't tell them what to do. Tell them, okay, now that we've had this discussion, I think I know what we should do next time, but I want to hear from you what you think the next time you should be doing. Now, there's a reason for this. 2 things. One, if they tell you a good plan, you understand that they've actually understood the situation. Had a up-and-coming supervisor, that did the whole everyone's my friend, I'll tease, your mama jokes and that sort of thing. Your mama's so fat that when she sits around the house, she sits around the house. Very sort of rude. That's the way he was with his friends, and that's the way he was at work. So we sat down and we talked to him saying, look, we're trying to develop you into a supervisor. You can't be making these kinds of jokes about people's mothers and the whole thing. It's going to really hurt your career. He's like, all right. So then I said, so can you tell me what I just said and what will you do next time? I'll just shut up and do my job. No. Obviously, you didn't hear. So we went over it again. What should we do next time? Shut up and do my job. Okay, let's do this a third time. Okay, what should you do next time? I hurt people's feelings when I do your mama jokes. I shouldn't really be doing that because you're trying to develop me into a supervisor. And when I feel I'm about to say this, I should just listen to my own head and not do it because it's hurting my reputation. Took 3 times. What if I would have said, okay, you guys stop doing that? What would leaving that office, what was it in his head? Shut up and do my job, right? So ensuring that you are getting their point of view and what they think they should do next time in that situation, you know that they've actually heard you and that they want to improve on those areas, okay? Build an agreement and document it. Physically actually document that agreement, even if it's within peers, right? I'm not talking, this is not about manager, supervisor. The two of you, 2 equal peers, have had a disagreement, a falling out. You sit down, you talk, you give each other feedback, and then you write it down, send an email, both of you sign it, whatever it may be, as an agreement. That's what you're going to do next time. Why? What happens when it happens next time? You can refer to it. Kim, remember that agreement that we both signed? Or that we agreed to, or that email I sent you that this wouldn't happen again? It happened again. No, it didn't. I didn't agree to that. Sure you did. Here's the pay. And so that's where that agreement comes in, right? It might seem silly, but sending an email, same thing. Hey, as per our discussion, next time this happens, that's your written document. Save it, whatever it may be. Write a note. Okay, so what I'm saying is that next time this happens, we should do this, right? Right. Okay, let's both initial it as an agreement, a symbolic gesture that we are both committed to doing this next time. Is that fair? And say thank you. This isn't me saying thank you for listening. This is me saying, say thank you. I know this was a difficult conversation. I know this was uncomfortable. I know this isn't easy. I know we can get past this. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being an adult about this. Thank you for being mature. Thank you for keeping your cool. And if you think that that person's going to lose their cool, when you're talking about the permission, look, can we talk about this? It's a little bit uncomfortable for me, but because I think you're going to get defensive, or I think you're going to cry, or I think you're going to get emotional, and I hope that doesn't happen. And as soon as you tell people what you think their behavior is going to be, they'll do a self-check. They'll become defensive, and I'll show you I'm not going to cry at all, or I'm not going to be defensive at all, and that sort of thing. But now, what you've done is you set an expectation. I expect you to cry, or if you start crying, if you raise your voice, we're going to shut down this meeting. This is why it's so important to set those expectations.